Hi everybody, welcome back to the Why Kim YouTube channel. Subscribe, ring the bell, and comment down below, especially about all the political topics we've covered the last couple of episodes. I'll quickly just touch on that. Then I want to give you my new progressive idea. It's not, I'm just kidding. Now, all of the arguments that are in the culture at the moment, in 2022, many of these political arguments that are going on date back over 1,000 years. The same arguments were happening at that time. So what I'm saying to the Why Kim community is, some of the things you hear, some of the arguments that you might even make yourself, are not new. They're not original. And I'm just giving you a quick warning. Be careful about these, I'll call them charlatans, but they don't have to be that, and maybe that's putting people down. However, just be careful of clicking too quickly on the internet and getting the buzzwords and getting the feeds from these popular characters that have charisma, that present political ideas about how things should be, about how you should live, about how we should live together. And they're presenting the ideas as their own. Just be careful. In some instance, I would say that it's wrong to present older theories, older political ideas, writings, careful thought, and arguments and reasoning between all these people over the last 1,000 years, to present all of this, some of it, or just pickings from each one, as your own. So be careful, that's all I'm saying, because you don't want to get caught up in that. And I would not want anybody to find themselves talking at the dinner table, making claims about politics and ethics, what's right or wrong and how we should live together, and bringing in some new person that's got charisma, that's given you this idea, and now you're presenting it because you fell for their spell of trickery, persuasion and rhetoric. So just be careful. Okay, now, what I want to speak about is the older generation and the new generation of these culture wars. And you know what I'm speaking about. Over the last couple of years, there's been many different subjects that are confronting a lot of people, especially the older generation. Feminism has always been there, and I might just use that as an example. Doesn't mean I'm harping on about it, so calm down. Sometimes we give the older generation, well, I do anyway, I give them leeway. If they make a mistake with something they say, if they're using their language, their speech, and they say something that's ignorant and hurts another person, especially, a feminist, a woman, and these older generation of men say things that hurt them. We give them leeway and we say their culture, the way they grew up, their family, their state they grew up in, their community, it didn't help them, and so just give them a break. And it's important to do that sometimes, especially if they admit it themselves and they feel bad about it. They say, I didn't mean to hurt you that way by saying such an ignorant comment, putting you down. Now, some of the times these happens, like these people actually have no idea, and they'll even fight angrily against it and say, I'm doing nothing wrong. That's the way that I say that. That doesn't mean anything to me. How can it hurt you? So all I'm saying to the Why Kim community is, open your mind. Because when it comes to progression and the history of ideas and political thought, we must remember that at times when people bring new ideas forward, that we rebel against them at the time, and there's a fight, a battle. And then later on down the track, we realize, oh, look at the way it was last time. We have progressed. So when one of these new subjects comes to you, and maybe you find yourself fighting with it, think about that. And I know it's an expression that maybe has no substance, but I'll say it anyway. Open your mind. Like, really. When it comes to these new culture subjects that come to you and you're struggling to accept it, you might even find yourself, like I just described, angrily defending yourself and then putting the other person down for the statements they're making. Now, the other point I'd like to make is a personal point to the YCAM community and myself. You know, what kind of a role model do you want to be? What kind of a friend do you want to be? A family member? Do you want to be that person that, you know, stands there, sits there at the table, saying terrible things, putting other people down, these new subjects that come to you, these new progressive ideas, and you're dismissing them straight away without giving it any study or thought yourself, and not realizing the history of political thought, and that this happens all the time, and the battle begins, then it evaporates and an answer comes when the mist is clear, and usually we have then progressed. Now, I would say that is what's happening at the moment, especially these last few years, very important years for political activism. And you know the subjects I'm talking about. There's quite a few of them, and I want you to comment down below and put them there, and I will discuss them. In regards to the ignorance of the older generation, and when we give them leeway, and we say, look, just give them a break. Give them a break. They didn't know any better. How are they supposed to know this? That your culture was hurt by that statement. Now, in a sense, I am a big believer, personally, in giving people a break, especially if they've been brought up in a generation where it was very different, and they were brought up never reading one book in their whole life. Of course, you have to give leeway. However, my objection to that is, what about the older generation that were the people themselves that progressed, were progressive, and changed things? Some of these older generation are the ones that changed things, even 1,000 years ago. Some of the older generations, and ones even now, they've been mulling over these problematic issues like feminism, like, you know, all feminism is, to put it very simply and bluntly, is that women have an equal status to the man. That's a very old school definition of feminism, but that's essentially what it was supposed to be. True equality in its perfect sense. True equality. Exactly equal in every single way, socio-economical, psychological, biological equality as well, in every single way. There were older generations, and there still are now, even men, to use this problematic, theoretical term, which is not non-binary, which is another issue. We'll talk about that another time. So what I'm saying is that the older generation don't have to be ignorant. They don't need to be. And if that's you, you don't need to be. And if that's me, I don't need to be. So it's not always an excuse to give leeway, to give them a break. Because there'll be someone the same age as them, who came from the same culture, who grew up the same way. However, the difference was they had a desire, an intellectual, virtuous desire to progress. That's the difference. And they did have an open mind. They never dismissed new progressive ideas straight away because it made them feel uncomfortable because they didn't grow up that way. No, they embraced them. Okay. YChem viewers, comment down below and give me some of these other subjects in the last few years, and remember it's 2022 right now, in which have been controversial, complicated and progressive, and ones that you struggle with. And you know what I'm talking about. YChem out.